KBLA Talk 1580 to examine the question, where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? At the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science on Saturday, January 25th. Some of LA's top elected officials, Representative Sidney Comlager Dove, Mayor Karen Bass, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, and City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson will be on hand for what promises to be a lively and informative conversation. Doors open at 8 a.m. The general session, moderated by Tavis Smiley and broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580, begins at 9 a.m. The event is free, but seating is limited and registration is required. Go to the Empowerment Congress website at www.empowermentcongress.org to register. Where do we go from here? Chaos or democracy? Come join the Empowerment Congress and KBLA Talk 1580, Saturday, January 25th at the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. Doors open at 8 a.m. The free program starts at 9 a.m. Registration is required at www.empowermentcongress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Is the Black Pack, and I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, here at KBLA Talk 1580. So if it had not occurred to you yet that the annual celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King and his vision for an America that is inclusive and offers equal opportunity for all falls on the same day as the inauguration of Donald Trump, whose vision for America is the exact opposite of what Dr. King offered to the nation. Let me be the first to tell you, if you had not realized that, let me be the first to tell you that that is exactly what is happening on Monday, January the 20th. And so here to help me make sense of this historical contradiction is Judith Brown Dianis, the executive director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, and a new TikTok refugee. So, Judith, welcome back to the Black Pack, and also, thoughts and prayers for your ability to find a new home. Now that you're not going to be on TikTok.
At least I can say I am not on Red Note.
I have been a little surprised at people's willingness to be migrated over to Red Note.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you have something that is run by China and it's called Red Note, you probably should not be on that joker.
Well, so my daughter speaks Mandarin, and she, looked at the Red Note. Yeah, she looked at Red Note and she's like, "Yeah, that's not the translation. The translation is Red Book." So, it's very literal.
You won't find me there.
So I want to talk a little bit about, obviously not a little bit, but obviously about what is just this huge kind of contradiction that we are facing on Monday. But I also wanted to just bring up what I was talking about actually at the top of the show, where, as the Trump administration is getting ready to take over, the Biden administration is winding down, but they're winding down in a flurry, right, of activity, right? So we saw the 2,500 commutation of 2,500 sentences today, and then the other thing that we saw was the president declaring the Equal Rights Amendment, that the ERA is now, in fact, a part of the Constitution, right? So the ERA, which, would bar discrimination based on sex, began its journey in 1972. I feel like we've been talking about the ERA my entire life, right? So beginning in 1972, it was finally pushed over the finish line when Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the amendment. And there was some confusion today, right? Like, on social media, in the group chats, right, there was some confusion because it had been previously reported that the nation's archivist had to publish the amendment before it could be officially added to the Constitution. But Biden's announcement essentially bypasses the archivist, who said that she would not publish it until Trump was inaugurated. And it makes the ERA the 28th Amendment to our Constitution. So it's actually a quite historic moment, right? And we should see this as a part of the ongoing, fight for women's rights. But it's a major victory in our country, and I'm not sure that it has been picked up as such.
Well, first, I just want to say the idea that the archivist, right, should think that they get to be the decider of what's in the Constitution and what's not is like hilarious, right?
Yeah.
And that person thinks that they can hold up, the ERA is just like amazing. So, I mean, at basically the Constitution now, it says that equality of rights under the law can't be denied on account of sex. Now, we will, this is the thing, is that this is going to be litigated for forever now, right? Like, even its very existence, and then, like, what does it mean? What does sex mean? As we were joking with our friend Fatima Goss-Graves at the National Women's Law Center, like, for the rest of her career, she will be litigating the ERA, and it won't go, and she will retire, and they will continue
and it will go
to
on.
be litigating about the ERA, right? Because so as for as long as it has been out there and it stood as like a passed amendment, is the length of time that whether or not that the litigation will continue over its very existence.
Right.
So,
but for the moment,
this is the thing overall. But for the moment, this is a huge deal, right? Yeah. And I'm telling you, these last few days, I put something on Instagram about how President Biden, they call this period of time the lame duck period. And he was like, I'm not lame. You call somebody else lame. I'm not lame because here's what I'm about to do, right? And I mean, and it's important because, doing the stuff around the disparities between crack cocaine and cocaine disparities, that was really important, that action that he took. The other thing is, as someone who sits on the board of of Friends of the Earth, which is an environmental group, this week he also protected 625 million acres of ocean.
Right.
And it was, and now, sorry for you, it's the East Coast, not the West Coast. And so, so sorry he didn't go far enough.
Right.
But that's big, because as much as Trump says drill, baby, drill, right? The President Biden said not so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's y'all called him Sleepy Joe, said he was tired and not doing stuff, and then Joe Biden said in his final 72 hours, I'm gonna show y'all that I was not asleep, and that I am fully capable, and I'm gonna stay awake until I get as much as I need to get done to cement my legacy and move these parts of my agenda. Right. Okay, so when we come forward, I want to continue the conversation with Judith Brown Dianis, Executive Director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, about this contradiction and so much more. I mean, I keep using the word contradiction because, frankly, it's the only one that I can can come up with about what is about to happen on Monday and what we can't let happen in terms of the appropriation of Dr. King during this inauguration. So stay with us. We have a lot more to talk about. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to The Black Pack.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Can your pad absorb everything and stay fresh? Always Radiant with Flex Foam can. Get up to 0 leaks, 0 odor, and 0 feel. Because Flex Foam is the only pad with a flexible foam core. You heard me, foam. Always Radiant is so thin, it feels like nothing, yet protects like nothing else. Can your pad do that? For up to 100% leak-free protection, try Always Radiant to see what Flex Foam can do for you.
Febreze.
Fabric Talk.
Hello, my love. I am your living room carpet. I see everything. I feel everything. After a while, I smell like everything, including Sir Pickles, who you snuggle with while binging that dating show you can't stop watching. So, how about we freshen things up with Febreze Fabric Spray? Oh, and a big spray for my pals, couch and ottoman. Ah, yes, refreshing. Breathe happy, Febreze. La 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 la.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack. I am Adrianne Shropshire, and I am joined by Judith Brown Dianis, Executive Director of the Advancement Project Action Fund. And we are talking about this upcoming Inauguration Day, which is also King Day, which is not, I'm offended. Thanks, Judith. I am offended that this is happening on the same day. And this is actually apparently only the third time that this overlap has happened since the King holiday was first commemorated, and it's not expected to happen again until 2053, wherein we hope we are still having elections in America.
Well, there's that. There's that.
But what are your thoughts on this very contradictory moment in U.S. history?
Well, first I want to start with Bernice King, right? Because Bernice King, daughter of Martin Luther King Jr. and CEO of the King Center, I think she had a good take on this, right? Which was that, and I'm going to quote her. She says, "What better day for this to occur than King holiday? Because that means now people get to see this major contrast, right?" I mean, she's got a big heart, so
yes, she does.
So, from where she sits, saying like, you get to see him versus a real vision for our world. She says that's steeped in humanity and what it means to be a compassionate nation, right? So I want to hope and pray that people see that contrast. But those of us who do the work, and so many who know what is ahead of us, know that it is a travesty that this is happening on MLK's holiday. In fact, I remember the first news of this that I remember seeing was the museum, the Blacksonian as we call it.
Yes, we call it.
In D.C., saying that it was closing down for the inauguration day. And sorry, it happens to be, MLK holiday, but it made sense.
Yeah.
You do not want to have that museum open with a bunch of MAGA nuts in town, right? Right. So just even that, the idea that we have to close down a museum that carries our history, that is beautifully done, that tells the story of our people, in order to accommodate these MAGA nuts and to make sure that we're safe from them, right? Because that's really what it's about, is being safe from them.
Yep.
So the juxtaposition of this holiday and the celebration of a man who was anti-capitalist, who was anti-racist, who fought back on white supremacy, who started the Poor People's Movement, and taught us about the beloved community.
Right.
At a moment when we have somebody entering the White House who is all about hate and white supremacy and fascism and authoritarianism, is just like the way that sits is pretty incredibly hurtful, right? Yeah. And that we have to hold that contradiction in this moment is really hard when we know that not only is it the inauguration, but on that very day, he will sign, we believe, about 100 executive orders that will carry out the hate, right? So we expect that there will be something on immigration. We expect that President Biden signed on Inauguration Day when he was inaugurated an executive order for racial equity. We believe that there will be an executive order that will get rid of DEI, all racial equity programs in the federal government, right? On that day.
Well,
so that's, it is incredible to have to think that this is what we have come to.
Well, and that those executive orders are rolling back all of the purpose, right? The intention, right, of the struggle for Black liberation and racial equity in this country. So when we think about signing executive orders to get rid of DEI, they're executive orders to return us to segregation, right? Like that is what the idea that you create spaces where you eliminate people who you think should not be in that space with you. That's segregation,
right?
And I feel like there's a way in which we have to call these things out for what they are. Otherwise, we get lost in whatever verbiage the right wing in this country wants us to get lost in. Right. And so I think that there's I think I agree with Bernice King in that maybe this is a good thing. Right, that you have on the one hand, you'll have people gathered in Atlanta, right? You'll have people gathered in South Carolina. You'll have people gathered in Detroit. You'll have people gathered right here in LA, all talking about the vision for America that we would like to have, right? The vision that Dr. King laid out that we actually need to advance, right? That we actually need to see not just that vision come into being, but to actually build on that vision versus a man who said that on day one he will be a dictator, and I assume that that's what those executive orders will be sending a message around, right? Will be amplifying, right? The dictatorial nature of this person,
right? And and it'll be shock and awe for the day, right? And people who I think about.
It ain't gonna be shock and awe outside though. Because he's going to have to shrink his little shock and awe down to fit in the rotunda.
To get inside, which I live in the DMV area in D.C., and if you go downtown right now, it is like a fortress, right? We've got these barricades everywhere, like even blocks and blocks from the White House and from where everything would be, right? And I'm sorry, I'm giggling my butt off because they are down there now taking everything down.
Dismantling.
He's dismantling it because he's decided that they're going to be inside because it's too cold, right? But we all know that's because, he ain't getting no big crowd. So whatever, okay. But it is going to be shocking off for people who are like undocumented people in this country who are bracing for the worst. Yeah. Right. We keep hearing the stories about which cities they're going after first, that it's going to start like immediately on day one, on day two of his administration. People trying to figure out, what am I going to do about my children if I have to leave the country and my child is a citizen, and people who are living in real fear, transgender people who know that like they are a target, right? And that, he's going to take everything from them and try and drive them into the shadows in this country, right? And so it is awful to think that this is where we have come. And, I hope that the only thing we can hope is that people will not give up, right? That we will fight back, that we will resist, that in the name of King and others who came before us, that we ain't going down without a fight, right? Because he is going to, as you said, roll back all the progress. We will see the Department of Justice. I mean, this is a man who is talking about the Department of Justice going after affirmative action, and that he wants reparations for white people.
Right. Yes.
Because white people have been aggrieved by civil rights advances.
Right.
Right? So he wants reparations, white people. So, so this is like where we are. And I think that I'm hoping that in all of this, that we will not sit back, right? As much as I see like black women are taking a rest, that's not in our DNA. Yes, you can take a rest, but y'all know we get them to work. And so this is not, and as much as the King holiday has also been usurped by this idea that we should, a day of service, right? But like service that's like cutesy service. No, it needs to be a day of activism, and let's remember the radical King, and embrace who he was as the radical King.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that's right. I think that I don't entirely know or understand where the idea of the day of service came from. I think it was Obama, right? But I think that the day is because the movement in King's legacy is about disruption, right? It is about disrupting things that are not right. It is about not settling. It is about saying, it is about speaking truth to power and all of those things, and saying that we will keep pushing forward until it is done. And I think that we need to, that's part of the, again, like going back to Bernice King, maybe that's part of the beauty of these two things happening on the same weekend is reorienting people. Right? Reorienting people around what the legacy of King is, right? We should do all the charitable things that we do. That's just a part of who our community is, right? Is what Black folks do, right? I think Council Member Harris Dawson was on earlier, and he talked about, in the aftermath of the wildfires here in Los Angeles County, that people who have less than the folks whose homes burned down are out there buying water to take to distribution centers, right? So it's just it's just a thing, right? That we should do. It is the right thing to do. But there are things wrong in our society. And the legacy of King that I understand is about correcting those wrongs, right? Is about building an America that is grounded in justice, that is grounded in fairness, right? And I think that that's maybe this weekend helps us get back to that. There are some things happening this weekend, right? Like you are going to be speaking at the People's March tomorrow, right? In D.C.
Yep, we will be down at the Lincoln Memorial, in fact, is where the march will wind up. And, this is, like you said, an effort to make sure we reorient ourselves and that we remember what this is all about, right? Like not just what we're up against, but what we're trying to build, right? Because that's the thing is like we can get caught up in like all the things that he's going to do, but we have to keep a vision for the America that we want.
Right, and so we are fighting for something, as we are fighting to stop what's happening. We talked a little bit about the People's March last week's show, partly because the first big response to Trump when he first got elected in 2016 was the Women's March that happened in January before the inauguration, and now there is this broader coalition. And certainly there will be women of all sorts there. But there was this broader coalition of organizations who have come together to essentially be, once again, the first statement, right, about what this country and the people in this country, the half of this country that said absolutely not, are willing to do. And that's seems like a good thing, and Advancement Project is a part of that effort, right?
Yep, and most of the speakers for the event are women. Definitely not white women.
It was sort of like, leave your hats at home. Leave them at home.
No, right. Ain't no pink hats up in that camp. And this was really like an acknowledgement of like, folks are like, this is not just about white women, this is all of us, and this is like the People's March. And so the speakers are going to be addressing all of like the key issues that we have to like secure over the next 4 years: our democracy, our climate, immigration issues, education issues, housing, et cetera. And so this is an opportunity also to build a broader tent. And to see our issues all connected, right? And so, if you care about immigration, you should care about the criminal legal system and vice versa, right? Because promulgation is a real thing, right? If you care about housing, you should care about education, because where you live is related to where your kids go to school, right?
Well, and some
so
of this,
being able to see the linkages is important.
And these are the issues that we also know are going to be a part of these executive orders, right? That will be addressed in some way. So I want to, when we come forward, I want to continue that conversation with Judith Brown-Dianis from the Advancement Project Action Fund. A little bit more about these executive orders and what people should understand about them when we come forward. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Firefighters are making progress on wildfires in Los Angeles with 40,000 acres still burning. The fires have killed 27 people and destroyed thousands of structures. The PGA Tour is moving the Genesis Invitational out of Pacific Palisades due to the wildfire ravaging the Southern California community. The tournament, hosted annually by Tiger Woods, had been scheduled to be played at the Riviera Country Club in Pacific Palisades during the week of February 10th. The Justice Department is suing Houston County, Georgia for alleged voting discrimination, claiming its at-large election system dilutes black voters' power. With a black population over 30%, only one black person has served on the county commission. And the Maryland Office of the Public Defender protested against charging minors as adults, citing its disproportionate impact on black and brown children. They advocate for cases to start in juvenile court to avoid unnecessary drama. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Let's get an update in San Juan Capistrano. A crash on the 5 southbound before Ortega Highway now only has the 2 right lanes blocked, but big delays are still loading up getting away from La Paz Road out of Mission Viejo. The drive on the 73 South, well, that's pretty slow as well, especially the connector to the 5 southbound. It's loading up as you creep and crawl onto the 5. Now, the drive on the northbound side of the 5, it's doing all right. Minor delays as you pass the scene of this crash. We're heading out to the drive in Agora Hills, 101 southbound. That is a tough one. You're loading up all the way from Chesborough as you continue in stretches to the 170-134 split and ahead in Hollywood from Sunset Boulevard into downtown Los Angeles. Getting out of town, the drive into the Cajon Pass loads up on the 15 northbound from the 210 to the 138.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congratulations to University of South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley. She is now the highest paid coach in the history of women's college basketball. South Carolina gave Staley a contract extension today worth $25.2 million. The extension keeps her at South Carolina through the year 2030. The deal increases her salary to $4 million a year, includes a signing bonus of $500,000, and contains annual increases of $250,000. Staley has won 3 national titles at South Carolina, including a 38-0 run last season. South Carolina is number 2 in the nation behind UCLA. Number 1 UCLA is the only team to beat South Carolina this season. The Bruins beat them November 24th at Pauley Pavilion. Dodger star Shohei Ohtani donated $500,000 to the firefighters and first responders dealing with the wildfires in LA County. The sports world has stepped up big in response to the wildfires disaster. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you, neighbor to neighbor, bringing you resources and what you need to know. Sign up for Notify LA on your phone to get fire danger alerts and updates, or check on lafd.org. The Watch Duty app is free and provides wildfire maps and updates in real time. Keep your gas tank full and plan your route in case you have to leave the area. City and county officials are urging you to pack a go bag so you can be ready to leave your home quickly in case of an evacuation order. Your go bag should include a couple of days of clothing, copies of your important documents and ID, money, insurance information, your medications, electronic devices, batteries, chargers, a small radio, and emergency contacts. If you receive an evacuation order, gather your loved ones, grab your bag, your pet food, and leave immediately. For information on shelters for your pets or even your family, call 211 for the City of Los Angeles and 311 county-wide. Wearing a mask outside will help protect you from smoke, toxic fume, and particulate matter. If you don't need to go out, it's best to stay home with the windows closed. Getting to know your neighbors is a great way to stay safe, stay connected, and share resources. And Angelinos are stepping up to help, so reach out and find the assistance you need. Mutual Aid LA Network is constantly updating a Google Sheet with mutual aid resources. You can find it at tiny.cc-malan-fire. The earlier you make a plan, the better off you'll be when every second counts. Praying for LA, preparing, and standing with you. KBLA Talk 1580.
The holidays can be a time of increased stress for those struggling with opioid or stimulant addiction. They can also be a time for pause, reflection, opportunity, and new beginnings. This holiday season, choose treatment and recovery. Embrace the company of family and friends and create special moments. Find a proven opioid or stimulant addiction treatment provider near you at choosechangeca.org.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
You've been listening to The Black Pack. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, joined by Judith Brown Dianis, the Executive Director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, as we are trying to make sense of the upcoming inauguration of Donald Trump, which is happening on the exact same day that we are celebrating one of America's greatest heroes and true visionaries and champion of justice and right, Dr. Martin Luther King. And so those two things are obviously, the comparison of those two things are extraordinarily stark. And Judy, you said earlier that, that that he will likely attempt to do sort of a shock and awe, right, on day one. So he talked about being a dictator on day one. He's not going to prove that by simply sitting inside of the shrunken inauguration that he now has because of allegedly the cold. But I think you are right that it is partly going inside because he knows full well he will not be able to make claims about crowd size, given that no one was coming to his inauguration. And so this gives him a way out. But the way that he can sort of demonstrate to his authoritarian dictator friends around the world, and to those people who wanted him to bring immediate pain to other Americans, he will do some things, right, on day one. Mm-hmm. He will sign a bunch of executive orders that attempts to demonstrate that he is America's strongman, right? That he is willing to inflict pain on his own citizens because that is the model of leadership that he aspires to, and it's also the manifestation of the thing that we talked a lot about during the campaign, which is Project 2025. Right? So we've not heard a whole lot about Project 2025 since November 5th, right? But that is the blueprint, right? And while he may say things that are completely incoherent and make these wild fake promises and, all kinds of claims, there is a blueprint that's been constructed by folks around him. And so you mentioned earlier the kinds of things that we can expect to see on day one. And so I want to just talk a little bit more, have you talk a little bit more about what some of those things might be.
Sure. So as I said, they are saying that we should expect that there will be about 100 executive orders that he signs on Inauguration Day. And it'll be an array of things, right? Like we don't know exactly what's going to be in it. He apparently did some previews to Republican senators about what would be in it. But we know that it probably will be things that were some of the campaign promises. Mm-hmm. And this is the other thing about executive orders is that he's going to do a bunch of executive orders that are like things that he actually doesn't have the power to do, but he's going to do it anyway, right? And be like, yeah, well, sue me over it, right? So, for example, which is what he's doing for, right? I'm just going to do what I want to do because if I'm a dictator, I get to do what I want to do, right?
That's right.
And now I've packed the courts.
And no one can stop me, right? Because the Supreme Court said I can do whatever I want to do. Mm-hmm.
Those are my people, so I'm good. So I think the first thing will be on immigration. Mm-hmm. We should expect that he will try to close down the borders,
right?
And that means bringing back Title 42, which was the law that during the pandemic they used to close down the borders for public health reasons.
Right.
So he will probably bring that back. He'll probably start reconstruction of his border wall. Mm-hmm. And he will announce mass deportations, and that will come through, for example, using what is these 287G agreements, because mass deportations cannot happen without the assistance of either the local police departments, or the military, right? The military and National Guard, right? Because ICE and CBP can't do it on their own.
Right.
They need to beef up their forces, right? So he could declare like there's a state of emergency on immigration, so that could activate the National Guard, right? Or the 287G agreements. A lot of cities got out of those, and we're not going to take this money to do this work. He could say, well, he's probably going to say, if you don't do these things, right, these conditions, just like he's trying to do in California about the fires, you don't accept my conditions, you will not get federal money, right? And so you got to play with me or you're sold out. There's no money coming for you. So we should expect that that will happen. The other thing is that there's been a policy that's been in place at the federal level for a long time that's called the Sensitive Locations Memo, which is the memo, a guidance that basically says that ICE and immigration will not enforce deportations and immigration laws in churches, hospitals, and schools.
Right.
And that will be gone. They're apparently getting rid of the sensitive locations. So, schools will be okay, right? Churches that were becoming sanctuaries for people that were seeking asylum and undocumented people, they're going to be like, nope, too bad. Hospital, that's okay. You laying up in the bed in the hospital, we don't care.
Right.
So no place will be safe.
Yeah.
So I think that's on immigration.
Yeah.
Then we should
alone. And I want to just pause right there, because everything that you just walked through is on immigration alone. And I also think that it's really important. I think that, that I think folks in our community understand this, but I do want to say that if we are under the impression that massive sweeps through our community, through our schools, through our places of worship, right? If we are under the impression that somehow that is going to pass us by, we just are mistaken. Right? We're mistaken.
Right, because we know that what racial profiling is, right?
Right.
In order to get folks, they're going to have to do racial profiling, because they ain't talking about Russian immigrants, y'all, right? They ain't talking about they ain't even talking about Chinese immigrants, right? They talking about them black and brown people, right? And there are black immigrants in this country. Like, not everybody's from a Latin American country, right? And so they are, yes. So it is going to come after us. And even just the change in the environment in our schools, right? When people are going to be on edge, when, any young person that has to see one of their classmates or a teacher or somebody being, yanked
drug
out of
the
school,
classroom,
so that no place is safe. It's going to be horrible, right?
It's about intimidation and making people afraid,
Right. And the other thing that we should not miss about this is that I hate when people think about immigration as this thing over here, but I care about reducing criminalization. The apparatus that will be used for deportation is the same apparatus that criminalizes black folks. Right? That is, we're going to have more money going into police and militarization in the name of immigration, but will be a structure and system that has fed off of black communities for so long. It is going to get another boost of investment. Right? So we have to see this. Even if you think you don't care about, I don't care about those people, you better care about the fact that your police are going to have more money, more tools of surveillance. There'll be more cameras. There'll be more stops. All of that is going to happen because in the name of immigration, but they're going to be coming for us too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pause this there because I know you were going to go on to, we just talking about immigration right now, right? And there are other issues. So I want to pause this. And then when we come forward, I want to pick back up on what else should people be looking for on day one. And then I want to talk about what is our response. What is it with, again, we are not without agency. Right. And we are the story has not been written in the book closed. Right. And so when we come forward, I want to talk about those things with Judith Brown Diana, the executive director of the Advancement Project Action Fund. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Black Pack.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Ignited Light program invites one and all to the 8th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, January 18th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. The spirit of Dr. King's legacy of service continues as local organizations come together. A drive-through food giveaway, free medical services, the Department of Children's Services offering employment opportunities. Foster and emancipated females aged 18 to 26 can take part in a very special She Ready luggage giveaway on Saturday, January 18th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. More info, visit adayon.org. Again, adayon.org. Drivers, please enter from the Marlton Ave entrance.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the Black Pack, and I am in conversation with Judith Brown Dianis, the executive director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, and we are talking about what to expect as Trump comes into office, right? And we laughed about the crowd size and the fact that they got to go inside and gonna be but 10 people in there. But we also know that in his desire to be a dictator, he's gonna do some really crazy, outrageous, and destructive things on day one. We are also joined by Derek Johnson, the president of the NAACP. Derek, Judith was sort of walking through the kinds of executive orders that we can expect from Trump on day one, and we talked about immigration. There's also, Dr. King once spoke about the tyranny of silence, right, and our duty to speak up. And so, as we think about the very scary reality, right, that we are about to find ourselves in, what do you say, Derek? Because I know you are. I think you might be in South Carolina right now for some King Day events, and there are NAACP folks around the country who are planning to engage in events and activities to celebrate Dr. King this weekend. What do you say to folks about this duty to speak up? What should we be saying to our community about what our role and responsibility is in this moment?
First of all, thank you, Adrian, for allowing me the opportunity. Hello, Judith. We are in a period of reassessing how we really leverage our power collectively. What this incoming administration is going to do, they're going to throw so many things against the wall so fast that we'll find ourselves playing whack-a-mole of what they're going to seek to do. And for many of us, it really is identifying local communities where we can go deep in preparation for the next cycle, 2026. Because the structure of government is, yes, it's the federal government. They're going to do harm. They have a trifecta. But there are states where we should not have lost. We should not have lost Michigan had we invested properly in the black community in Southeast Michigan. Georgia always will be in play because of the immigration of the black community. North Carolina is at the tipping of being the next Georgia consistently. we should not have lost Arizona for that matter, because the difference in the outcome is the small black community that's there that can make the difference in the outcome. So for the NACP, for us, we need to go local, plan, prepare, recognize that there will be some harm. Elections have consequences, and we're going to see the consequences of a Trump administration that's going to be dire in some areas, but we will survive this as we continue and prepare for the next iteration of the fight.
So part of the duty that we still have is to engage in our communities at the local level. Some of it is about protection, right? Some of it is about making sure that even in places, not even in the swing states, but even in places like here in California, right, that we are making sure that we are protecting our communities and preparing our communities for the opportunity that we still have, which is elections, to make sure that we remove people and send a message. Judith, what do you say to that in terms of what is our duty to speak up in this moment? Some of that you all are doing obviously this weekend, not just at the People's March on Saturday, but I know that you're going to be at a convening of faith leaders in Atlanta on King Day as well.
Yeah, I think we've got to make sure that we are educating ourselves and our people about what is happening in real time, so that folks have an understanding of all the things. Because it's like President Johnson said, there's going to be 5 million things that happen that he's going to do, and it's going to be hard to keep up with it. But we've got to know what is happening and what's being rolled back. And then I do think being able to protect ourselves at the local level is going to be important. There are places that are putting in place sanctuary cities. There are states that are trying to figure out how to get around all the conditions that they're going to put on things with federal funds. And so we've got to know what our local community and our city and state is doing to protect our people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is paramount, in terms of information, and I think that it's critical that it's just an ongoing thread through all of our conversations here at KBLA Talk 1580, and certainly here on the Black Pack, about being maybe a little bit more choosy, right, about where you get your information from, but also making sure that you're not spreading disinformation, that you're not, sort of taking stuff that comes from those who actually do mean our community harm, and spreading that right around our community. President Johnson, where will you be celebrating Dr. King this weekend?
I'll be in South Carolina primarily, and possibly Detroit. This weekend is a milestone in terms of recognize how far we have come, but also realizing that this past election, we lost the battle of narrative. When you have African Americans making decisions of going to the polls or not going to the polls, based on mis or disinformation, or just not realizing the impact of their inaction.
Yeah.
It's one thing that you go to the polls and you vote wrong. It's a whole different conversation when you don't go at all.
Right.
And majority of the black community didn't go. Now, let's be clear. The majority of the white community didn't go either.
Facts.
And in this country, we talk about we're the leading democracy, and we only celebrate a high turnout if we approach 60% turnout, when other nations are voting in Australia 95% of eligible voters, and in Canada 92%. So we have to shift the narrative so people can see that they are the decision, the solution that they're looking for. And in this country is at the ballot box. Who sit in a seat determines the public policy, and the public policy determines whether or not you improve the quality of life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, Judith, as we think about the next 3 days, right? The coming weeks. Derek mentioned the election cycle in 2026, but we actually have elections this year, right? Like we have governor's races that are going to be critical in Virginia, and in New Jersey, and so there are other elections that we know folks need to be paying attention to and engage in. But how do we make sure that we build and sort of keep momentum going for our movements and for our community?
Yeah, I mean, I think first people need to find a political home. What is an organization that you can plug into so you don't feel alone in this fight? All right. The other thing is that we've got to be vigilant with the people that we've already elected, because even like the Dems signing off on the immigration bill, we need to be calling our representatives on a regular so that they know that they cannot do certain things. And so this is our time to roll up our sleeves, be active all the time, be vocal all the time, because, what is going to happen in darkness, if we don't lift our voices, we will see all of the wins of the civil rights movement gone.
Right.
And then it'll be on us for not speaking up and fighting back.
Yes. And so I want to thank you both right in advance for the incredible work that I know that both you and your institutions will do to sort of guide and lead and help people find those places to plug in, right? So I think that it's also a matter of making sure that we have and we can help people find those political homes, like you said, Judith. And so thank you both for your leadership in terms of what you do, what you are going to do, and then also just on the on the policy fights. And I think, Judith, you are correct. We also saw, at least initially, a bunch of Democrats vote for the nonprofit killer bill, right? Getting rid of our organizations. And so we really have to be diligent, right, about what our current existing elected officials are doing if we're going to really fight and resist in this new era. All right. So Judith Brown-Dianis, Executive Director of the Advancement Project Action Fund, Derek Johnson, president of the NAACP. I want to thank you both for your time and for joining us here on the Black Pact to sort of sort through what we should be paying attention to as we head into this new era and while, it's dangerous and it will be harmful, I think that we have an opportunity to really rethink and rebuild some of the muscle that we may have lost in terms of what resistance and fighting looks like for our freedom and for our communities. Thank you all for joining us once again on the Black Pact. We will be here next Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Hope that you find a way to acknowledge and to celebrate Dr. King and his vision this weekend, and that you find a way to enjoy your weekends. See you next Friday.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. U.S. national security agencies have called President-elect Trump's inauguration an attractive potential target for violent extremists. A threat assessment from the FBI, Secret Service, and other agencies highlighted various scenarios involving foreign or domestic terrorists. Allentown, Pennsylvania is holding separate healing sessions by race following the discovery of a noose at City Hall. City officials explain this approach allows for more open dialogue with a joint session planned later. St. Louis City Controller Darlene Green is urging Black Mayor Tashara Jones to hire more contractors to clear roads before the next freeze. Mayor Jones says only 2 contractors have shown interest, while 53 snowplow drivers work 12-hour shifts focusing on major roads. And State Farm will offer policy renewals to homeowners affected by the Los Angeles County